Hi everyone, I'm Chika Odo. You're watching Sahara TV. The majority of our show today, we will focus on the recent plane crash in Nigeria on Sunday that claimed the lives of about 153 people who were on board, as well as people who were on the ground. I mentioned that we will be talking with the spokesperson of Nigeria's Emergency Management Agency. He will be on standby, but up next right now we have Mr. Salihu Ibrahim. He is a U.S. Airways pilot. He is joining us via telephone. Thank you so much for joining us, Salihu.
Yes, hi, how you doing?
We're doing good. So just first off, what happened as you know it?
From again, these are all preliminary reports at this time. Nothing's been finalized. Let me start with, first of all, saying that we'd like to send our prayers and to those who lost their lives on that Dana plane crash in the last couple of days, and also our condolences to their families, and may they have the strength to carry on in this time of loss. But from the preliminary information that was kind of received, and again, this is at this point can only be termed as maybe speculation until the analysis of the flight box data recorder has been analyzed and the results provided to not just the government but also to the people of Nigeria. It was a multiple engine failure which led to the pilots again heroically trying to glide and fly that airplane all the way down to a safe landing, unfortunately clipping power lines and ending up into a crash in a residential neighborhood. So that's as far as the reports, and again, probably the same reports that you have seen as well, and everybody or your viewers have seen as well, is what we know to have happened at this time.
You mentioned that this was a multiple engine failure, and I'm glad you brought that up. We just spoke with a journalist who mentioned the same thing as well. Right now, there is so much speculation. Rumors are flying all over the place. However, Dana Airways, they released a press statement that is posted on their website where they claim that this may have not been a multi-engine failure. This is just, again, speculation, and that people should not be claiming this is what happened with the investigation so far incomplete. So what makes you think that this was a multi-engine failure, whereas Dana Air is saying that it's not, it's uncertain?
Yeah, well, I don't know if maybe you misheard me there for a moment, but in the aviation industry, multiple engine failures are for just to find a word to put it, it's almost a fantastic event, okay? It's, if you can, for an analogy, think about driving your car down the road and you have both your headlights go out at the same time. Burn out. Maybe not an electrical issue, but each bulb on each side of the car just burn out at the same time. It's kind of like that. And then to make it even more fantastic is think about you're now driving at night, and not only does one headlight go out on a dark street, but both headlights go out on a dark street. It's kind of like that. One may burn out, and you have the other one to see you through until you can get to a mechanic workshop or a store to replace the bulb. That you can see happen, and a single engine failure it's not even common, but it happens, and we have procedures, and pilots all over the world are trained to fly an engine on the one engine, which the aircraft is actually certified and capable of flying on one engine to a landing. Mm-hmm. You will not continue a flight if you lose an engine. You want to land as soon as possible, because now your safety net, which would have been the second engine, has failed. So on the one engine, you're now an emergency aircraft, and you want to go and land as soon as possible and make a safe landing on a single engine. So I would have to agree with Dana that a multiple engine failure is highly unlikely. But again, it's all speculation at this time until the results of the flight data recorder is published, and we know what really happened to that aircraft and to the pilots on board.
So Salihu, you are a pilot with U.S. Airways. How long have you been flying?
Yes, I've been flying since 1999, but I've flown with one other airline, which was I was hired on with them in 1996. Mm-hmm. I think that back in 2006. I was hired on with them in 2006, and in that time I was a captain for about 3 years until the fuel crisis, the last in 2010, at which point I lost my command and was returned to a first officer. I've flown multiple aircrafts from the de Havilland Dash 8s to the CRJ-79 and 200, and currently I'm with U.S. Airways flying on the Airbus.
So this was a Boeing MD-83. Have you ever flown anything similar, or were you ever trained on a similar type of aircraft?
No, I have not. But again, this is almost the same airplane. The MD-80. It's kind of the same airframe that the Allegiant Airlines operates out of Las Vegas here. And I have quite a few friends who we were both pilots. Few co-pilots that I flew with when I was with my previous airlines that are with Allegiant now, and they fly the same aircraft. And from what I understand, it's an older airframe, but its maintenance is kept up on it. It's very reliable, almost like our 73s. The 737s are pretty old airframes, but they are flown all over the world. In fact, the most takeoffs and landings every day, it's a 73 somewhere in the world, taking off every 5 or 4 minutes.
Right. It's also a very well-known aircraft as well.
Yes, it's a very well-known aircraft. Maintenance-wise, the parts are available pretty much all over the world, and so it's not a difficult airplane to keep up with. It's from what I know. Like I said, I haven't flown the airplane myself or associated with it directly, but I do have a few co-workers that are flying that.
Have you ever flown in Nigeria at all?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever flown in Nigeria's airspace?
No, I have not. I've not had the pleasure yet.
Okay.
Maybe someday somebody will say I'm worthy and invite me over.
Well, can you give us some insights on how to fly a plane in the face of danger? What has to happen? What are some of the close-cut decisions that have to be made?
Well, let's see. First and foremost, there are regulations that are set in place by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority, and I believe it's the NCAA in Nigeria. I believe I mixed them up, but they have regulations that govern commercial air travel and even civil air travel. All right, and these regulations are there again as safety barriers to guide a blueprint for an airline to operate their aircraft safely from point A to point B. It talks about things like when to do maintenance on the airplane, when to change the oil, and in what frequency, is it every day, every 2 days, every 3 days, and so on and so forth. So basically, they keep the engines, they nurse the engines, they keep them healthy, they nurse the aircraft itself, keep it pressurized and free of cracks or anything that would cause a safety
Salihu,
situation.
one of your engines go down. What do you do? What are some of the... Tell me your thought process, some of the questions you ask yourself as a pilot.
Okay, well, again, as of right now, first of all, you got to remember, multiple engine failure is very, very unlikely, okay? But every aircraft has a form of a chart for a zero thrust glide, okay, which if you think of a paper airplane and you throw it into the air, it will float, but again, it won't go up, it's coming down.
I can understand that. I've flown a number of paper planes in my life.
There you go. So that basically, the aircraft can glide. Now the pilot is behind that, the controls. They can maneuver the airplane, but it's not going up, it's coming down. All right, so in that process of coming down, they can look out and say, okay, this is where we project we're going to end up.
Right.
And within that proximity, there's an airport, then that's where they're going to. So you're not going to try to do anything heroic, but point that airplane to an airport or an open field or somewhere the safest place that you can.
I want to just break in. I like you use the word heroic. So what would be heroic? What are some of the actions that would be called heroic in the advantage of emergency landing?
I said heroics just as a way of you're not gonna try to make the airplane fly with no engines. Okay, it's like trying to getting in your car and not starting the engine.
But Salihu, it happens in movies all the time.
Well, that's why I said heroics. It's not going to work. It's basically my point. So forget about the heroics and do what the airplane can do, which is coming down and you point it to where you want it to land. And you take that airplane there. Of course, you want to look at around you for if there's the trees, mountain buildings, anything around you. I'm not very familiar with where that airplane went down or where they claim, as of now, speculate the engines failed. But I have to believe that with these pilots, where they're professionals for one, and also their lives are at stake as well on that airplane, that they didn't just decide, you know what, we're just going to fly it into this power line. I have to believe that they were going for somewhere, the safest place that they could find at that period in time.
Right. Well, apparently this particular plane was tested with a flight between Ibadan and Lagos. That is a distance of about 136 kilometers, about 58 miles or so. Is that an adequate distance to conduct a test flight?
Well, yeah. They're short flights and they're long flights. So, yeah, it's distance really, it's not the issue. It's a hard surface to land on. There's an airport here and there's an airport there. From point A to point B, we can safely conduct air travel without any issues whatsoever.
So what are some of the dangers? I'm sorry?
Excuse me. The only difference you would think about on a shorter distance flight is you wouldn't have to maybe fly all the way up to 30,000 feet.
Right.
Okay, because that would defeat the purpose. You fly all the way up and then come all the way back down. So your cruise altitude will be lower, and for a shorter period before you begin the descent to land at your destination.
I want to briefly just get into the topic of autopilot. It's kind of been in the news. Well, it has been in the news a number of times. These reports that pilots are no longer as skilled or as adept as they used to be when it comes to handling emergencies because they're just so used to putting the craft on autopilot. What do you have to say in response?
Well, it's I can understand where that speculation would come in, but again, my few friends who are not in aviation have asked me the same question as well, and when I returned the question was, with your cruise control on your vehicle, does that make you not remember the rules and trades of the road? And usually the question is no, you can still drive without cruise control on. So autopilot actually makes it safer because it reduces fatigue, okay, on the physical body of the pilots that are operating the controls if they have to do it manually, right? It reduces that fatigue, and a rested, a non-fatigued person is more focused, okay? Your eyes move a lot faster and your brain ticks a lot quicker. So you can react. Your muscles are not fatigued, so you can react and you can think a lot quicker without being clouded by being
So you're saying in the advent of a misfortunate situation, being on autopilot prior helps because now maybe you're rejuvenated. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, you're definitely rejuvenated. I also think about this: if something goes, say you're flying the airplane, you hear a pop sound or a bang sound, something that distracts you, okay? And now you want to deal with that problem, okay? Your autopilot is your best friend at this point because once you can select the autopilot on, and that frees you up to investigate what was that sound, maybe pull out a manual, try to read some gauges, okay, is this temperature in the right place, okay, let's...
And how about go to sleep? Do pilots go to sleep when it's on autopilot?
Not. Oh, absolutely not. That's, except the autopilot is a tool for you to do your job, not giving up your job to the autopilot.
Okay. Well, my final question here, can you just clear up some of the misconceptions? What are some of the ideas that people have that may be false when it comes to flying a plane? So many people refuse to get on one. Can you just clear up some of those common questions that people still have about airplanes? For example, turbulence. Can turbulence bring down a plane?
Well, give me a couple and I'll gladly answer them.
Can turbulence bring down a plane?
The what?
Turbulence.
Oh, turbulence. Yeah, it's turbulence. Turbulence is just different velocities of air, or it could be, for example, I fly mostly out here in the Phoenix area, and during a hot day you get thermals, hot air rising and cold air coming down, and just like if you can think of swimming in a stream of water.
Right. So can that bring down a plane?
It's extreme or severe turbulence. Which again, is usually associated with a thunderstorm, which is, again, every pilot will tell you do not fly in the vicinity of a thunderstorm, let alone through a thunderstorm. So we avoid thunderstorms, which again would come with severe turbulence. So it can, but that's why we avoid it absolutely and completely.
And the media is reporting that a bird may have possibly struck the aircraft. Have you ever been in a situation like that?
Again, the engines are also rated and tested. Again, a bird striking the body of an airplane, it can do damage, but with the engine still running, the airplane will fly and come to a safe landing. And a bird being ingested into the engine of the airplane, depending again on the size of the bird, the engine is capable of receiving multiple bird strikes and still function. Mm-hmm. So again, depending on the results of this black box analysis, we know if that was the case. But then again, both engines at the same time, it's a little fantastic. But again, here in the U.S., we did have one of an Airbus out of I believe LaGuardia that flew into a flock of birds, and that did bring both engines down.
All right, Salihu, thank you so much for joining us on Sahara TV. We really appreciate your expertise knowledge.
Well, I really appreciate you guys inviting me on, and I just want to say again, our prayers go out to those who lost their lives, and our condolences to their families, which again, I just found out today that I had an uncle who was on board that aircraft as well.
You had an uncle?
Yeah, I had an uncle on board, Alhaji Shehu Saad, who lived in Abuja and works in Abuja, and we're
I'm
praying
so
very hard.
Sorry to hear that.
Who also, so for me, it's a little bit personal now. So I'm really trying to follow this as closely as I can, and I also want to emphasize that what we speak about today, really, the best we can do is speculate and give professional opinions. But until that black box, which again, I'm so happy that our president, Jonathan Goodluck, has stepped up and appointed a committee to really follow up on this and look into just about every airline to make sure it's not something else that's causing these engine failures or, again, speculated engine failures or accidents. But the black box analysis, which I hear has been sent to the U.S. now for analysis to be returned back to Nigeria with the results of it. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm really glad that the government has stepped up and they're really paying attention to this one, and hopefully we'll get some good information out of it and some changes will come from it.
Salihu, I'm so sorry for your loss, but thank you once again for joining us. Do have a great day.
Hey, thank you very much. You guys have a good one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone, that was Mr. Salihu Ibrahim. He is currently a captain pilot with U.S. Airways. He was giving us some of his thoughts on the Dana air crash that happened in Nigeria on Sunday.